Hey guys, thanks for joining me on this video today. As you can tell by the title, I am going to be sharing with you some tips and tricks that I have learned that has saved my sanity when it comes to having newborns and little ones in the house. I am a third-time mom. I currently have a 13-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 17-month-old. Big age gap. So by the time my son got here, who is 17 months now, I had kind of forgotten things, but there were some things that stuck in my mind that I remembered from kid to kid that worked and that I needed to make sure that I stuck to save my sanity. I assume you're clicking on this video, maybe you're a first-time mom, second-time mom, but even if you're a third, fourth, fifth-time mom, there are things that you forget. You get mom brain, and it goes out the window sometimes, some of the things that you remember worked and didn't work. So if you are a soon-to-be mom, no matter what the number is, maybe this will help you. Or if you already have, some kids and you're just looking for a refresher, hopefully this will help you too. If you're interested in these kind of videos, plus budgeting things and homeschooling things, how about subscribing to the channel? And if this video helps you, how about at the end, hit that thumbs up. It helped me. I am a growing channel and I would appreciate it. All right, so I'm going to jump into it. I've got 10 things, but I may add some things into this because I made my list a couple of weeks ago and there's some things that I have learned since then. So kind of not in any particular order, I'm going to give these to you. The first one has to do with clothes, and it is the socks. My first two were girls, so you had the frilly, cutesy socks, and then with the boy, it's a little bit easier. Even if I would have had a girl third time around, I would have kind of stuck to the same thing. But what I've done for my son is he gets the exact same socks. I had socks that were given to me, like baby showers or hand-me-downs, things like that. But I didn't keep all of them. I only kept what we needed, and then the rest of them went to donation or consignment or whatever. And since he has outgrown the little baby socks that were gifted to me, I have only bought the same socks. It's the white socks with the gray heel and the gray toe. He gets one kind of sock. You can't mismatch the socks if they're all the same. And that happened so many times with my girls. You get the pink and purple flowers and the little hearts and the butterflies, and you end up with two different socks. And if you don't care, you have two different kind of socks, then go for it, whatever. But it kind of aggravated me that I could never find socks that matched. So if I would have had a girl, I would have probably bought packs of socks that were like just pink, purple, white, something like that, maybe a gray. But for my son, he gets the exact same socks. When he moved up in size, because I've now bought two different sizes of these socks, I got the exact same sock. It's just a little ankle sock, the white and gray. I can wash them all, throw them all. I don't care if I've got, an odd amount of numbered socks because he's carried one to another room or we left one in a diaper bag. They all go in the wash machine and then they get dumped in a box in his top dresser drawer, and I can just reach in there and grab two socks and they match. On the same idea with the clothes. This time around, third kid, I finally learned my lesson. You don't need that many clothes. I repeat, you do not need a ton of clothes for a baby. A baby has very minimal needs on clothes. Think about like how many times you're going to wash a load of clothes. Are you going to wash baby clothes once a week? I keep ours separate for the first year or so. So all the baby's clothes get washed by themselves. How often are you going to do a load of baby clothes? Once a week? If you're going to wash clothes once a week, you only need a week's worth of clothes. I'm not saying only have a week's worth of clothes because sometimes that's kind of hard. You want to buy the cute stuff and people give you things. But you really only need a week's worth of clothes if you're going to do clothes once a week. And that dawned on me with this time around with the third kid that I did not need a ton of clothes. I started off with very minimal clothes and I've tried to keep to that, certain amount of pajamas. I have a section in his dresser that is for pajamas, and if it's overflowing, I get rid of something. Even if it's before, time to switch to the next size, I go ahead and get rid of something. It all needs to fit in that spot. If, the pants and the shorts and the t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, all that kind of stuff, I have a certain section in his closet that things hang. And then I have certain spaces in his dresser where they go. And if they don't fit, I get rid of stuff. Then on the same note with not having that many clothes, I got a smaller clothes basket. I have used the same changing table. Well, it's actually a desk that I have used as a changing table with all three kids. And then when they grow out of it, it's a desk like they can work and do their schoolwork at. But for right now, it's a changing table and it's got a little space under it where the chair would go. I use that as the space to put the dirty clothes. And I used to have the big, tall hamper up under there. And now I have switched to a box. I was going to bring it in here and show it to you, but I forgot it. It's a box that's maybe like a tote box. It was something that somebody gave me at a baby shower. It was made up like a gift box that had all the stuff in it, done all cute and ribbons tied around it and all that. So it's a little tote that's maybe about a foot by 10 inches, and it's about maybe 10 to 12 inches deep. Maybe a foot by foot there. Kind of a rectangle. And that's all. That's what I use for his dirty clothes. When that is full, that is about a load of clothes. And I go wash it. And then you don't have a mountain of clean clothes to try to put up. So that has helped me so much to downsize the amount of clothes, the socks matching. It has helped so much this time around. Okay, moving on from the clothes. It still kind of has to do with laundry, but if you have a changing table, I have a changing table. Not everybody has a changing table. I'm not saying you have to. I have had the option of having the changing table with that desk that I have used, and we always have had the pad that goes on top of it, and they sell the changing table pad covers. You know what I mean? Like they look like the fitted sheet that go on a crib, but they're for the changing pad. For my first daughter, I had a sheet on that changing pad all the time. Because it was just like, I have this thing and they make sheets for it, so I'm supposed to put the sheets on it. I don't do that no more. I have not put one sheet on the changing pad this time around. We had to buy a new one because I had to get rid of it after 2 babies. It was wore out. So we got a new pad for our changing table, and I have yet to put a sheet on that changing table. Because what's it going to do? It's going to get pee and poop on it. And then not only are you cleaning your kid and the kid's clothes, now you're having to pull off that sheet and wash that sheet and put a new sheet on. I ain't doing that. The changing mattress pad is washable material, so you just wipe it off and move on. And it's not that cold. When he was really little and I didn't want to lay him on the little changing pad, by itself, because I thought maybe it was a little cold, I would just lay a towel down on top of it. I would get one of his bath towels and lay on it and just leave the towel there if I thought he was going to be cold and I didn't want to lay him straight onto the pad. Just a little towel. And then you just throw the towel in the dirty clothes if you need to. But it's been a while since I've had anything laying down on that pad. It's just been bare, and if it gets poop or pee on it, just wipe it off. One less thing to wash. Another thing is if your baby sleeps in a crib, they've got their own little space. My kids have always slept in a crib, and so you have the crib size mattress sheets on the mattress pad. They are a pain, depending on the size and where your crib is sitting. They are a pain to change. So, and this was just something that is like one of those things that, like, why didn't I think of that? I didn't do this with it took me a little bit to figure this out, like with my first daughter. I would go to change the sheet, and I'd take the sheet off, and then I would have the new sheet. I'd go find the sheet, put the new sheet on, and it was just a pain because it was like so tight fitting, it was hard to get your fingers in there. So when you're changing the sheet on your baby's crib, pull the corner up on the mattress that you're going to be using, pull the dirty sheet off, immediately put the clean sheet on. Have the clean sheet in your hand. Dirty sheet off that corner, clean sheet on that corner. Next corner, off with the dirty, on with the clean. Set that side down. Pull the other side up. Off with the dirty, on with the clean. You get all 4 corners done at the exact same time. Take the old sheet off, put the new sheet on, you're done. Does that make sense? I thought about doing a little video to show what that was. I mean, it's so simple, but it's just something that you don't think about, and it took me a while to figure that out with my first kid. I think this is like number 6 or something like that. Have a second blankie. If your baby has a special blanket, and I've done this with all 3 kids, if they have a special blanket that you're going to start using with them from the beginning, even if it's not like the special blanket, always make sure you have a second blanket on hand. If you have blankie babies. I have blankie babies. They want to hold that blanket, and they feel more secure with it, and they'll go to sleep quicker if they have their blanket, like a specific blanket. So we've always had a duplicate. We've had blankie and we've had emergency blankie. With my son, he kind of interchanges. He doesn't really care. He does have one that's a little bit more of his favorite because it has a different tag on it and he likes the tag. But he will go to sleep with either blanket. So I make sure that the second blanket is always clean. And I did that with my girls. Second blanket was always clean in case there was an accident, something got spilled. Whatever the accident was, whatever it is that gets spilled, you just want to make sure you've got second blanket immediately there. Especially if they're like throwing up sick and they get that on their blanket and they need some comfort, you want them to be able to have their blanket. So immediately throw dirty blanket in the wash machine, have the clean blanket set aside, and you can give them their clean blanket and they can snuggle up with it really quick. So always have second blanket on hand, clean and ready to go. Something that I learned with my son that I did not know even was a thing with my daughters, and I wish I would have had this with my first daughter, was a sleep sack. The Swaddle that has like the Velcro on it. I think I did a video of this. If I have it, I'll link it. But I did not know this was a thing. And after I found out, because my son went through periods of not sleeping when he was really little, was that he needed to be swaddled. My first daughter, I think that would have made so much of a difference for me if I would have learned to swaddle her the correct way. And if I don't even know if they made the things then, they probably did, I just didn't know. But the swaddles that would go around them and then Velcro, and then would have like a piece on their chest. He hasn't used this in a while because he's way too big for it. But you lay the baby down in it, You pull a piece, or a piece come up from their like their feet, and it come up to their chest, and then it had a piece of Velcro there. So then you pulled this side over and it Velcroed, and this side over and it Velcroed, and it snuggled him in, and he slept so good once we got that Swaddle. And then when he got too big for the Swaddle, because I'd wake up and he'd have like one arm out and one arm in, we went to the sleep sack. And I'll put a link to the one that we got. It was great. It was so great. It saved my sanity because I was able to sleep, because he was able to sleep. So once we went to the sleep sack, it was had like a little weighted piece on the chest. So when he was still laying on his back sleeping, he flipped over pretty quick. But when he was still laying on his back, it had that piece that was a little bit weighted. It's like the same material as a weighted blanket, but it's just a little piece on their chest, so they kind of get that feel of somebody just laying their hand on their chest a little bit. It was just a little bit of a weight, and it was a tank top type thing, so their arms fit through it. They could move their legs. It just looked like a big sleeping bag that you zipped them up in. And he slept so good with that, especially when we went from Swaddle to sleep sack. There was a little bit of an adjustment, but it worked so great. And he sleeps good now. And that he went through some times of not sleeping, and that helped me so much when I found that. Okay, next tips have to do with feeding. I started off breastfeeding my son, but then after about week 6, we stopped. I was pumping after a week, if that makes sense. I started breastfeeding. We lasted about a week. That's a whole long story to that. And then after the week, I started pumping. So he got breast milk up to like 5-6 weeks. So I had a little bit of time of kind of figuring that out. Not near enough time to give you like expert tips and expert advice, but some things that helped me was that I pumped all day, and I think this is called the pitcher method. I pumped and put all the milk for that day into a big container that I had in the refrigerator. And I had pumped enough so that I could feed him. Like I had enough on reserve for I had like 24 hours on reserve. So then what I pumped for that day went into a pitcher, and it went into the refrigerator. And at the end of the day, I would put enough in bottles for the next day. So I would have enough to feed him. I'd fix all of his bottles, however many he was eating every 2 to 3 hours. So however many bottles that equaled out to, and however many ounces that he was eating at the time, I would put those bottles together. I'd put them in the refrigerator so they were ready to go. And then whatever was left, I would put into the breast milk, the baggies, to save them and freeze them for later. So that saved my sanity. I wasn't constantly washing bottles. I could do it at the end of the day, fill the pitcher, wash all the bottles from that day, get the bottles ready for the next day, and I was ready to go for the next day, by the time I went to bed that night. The other thing that I was saying, like, have 24 hours of a bottles, or, if you're pumping, if that's what you're doing, have 24 hours worth of bottles ready to go, so that you have that 24-hour period of knowing that you can go until bedtime the next day, and you're not like rushing it when it's time to fix lunch or supper. You're dealing with kids. If you can get it to where if you've got other kids, that baby and your other kids are in the bed, and you've got time to focus on getting the breast milk done and pouring in the bags and all that, because it kind of, at the end of the day, you're kind of out of it. So at some point in the day, if you can do it at the end of the day or first thing in the morning before everybody gets up, just have a 24-hour period where you don't have to tend to that until that one time and you're ready to focus on it. Okay, so this is something that I just started with my third baby. And this is just specific for me of how we do things. You can make this work for you. So I went back to work. I'm not even sure how old my son was, like 10, 12 weeks, maybe 10 weeks, 8 weeks old, maybe something like that. Went back to work, and he was still on that pretty tight baby schedule of eating every few hours. So my husband, I went back to work. If you're unfamiliar, I work outside the home. My husband stays home with the kids and does the homeschooling and all that stuff, like the day-to-day stuff, works from home when he can. So I would leave the instructions of when the bottles needed to be on our stand-up freezer. We have a stand-up freezer, or you could use a refrigerator, but we have a stand-up freezer in our kitchen, and I use a dry erase marker, and I wrote his schedule on there. So I would start it out, 8 a.m., 2 ounces, 10 a.m., 2 to 3 ounces, nap from 10:30 to whatever. It wasn't like a strict schedule he had to stick to, but it was just so that he would kind of know if baby's screaming his head off at this time, he can go up there and look and like, oh, I need to feed him. Because I don't know about you, but my husband's not always the most attentive to the kids in that way. I mean, I think that's a mom thing. I don't blame him for that. Baby starts crying, and I immediately, oh, it's been 1 hour and 45 minutes since he ate. My husband don't think like that. So I would leave notes on the with the dry erase marker on our freezer, and kind of like leave the schedule wrote down for him. And that's something you could do if you have somebody coming into your home, if you're leaving and you need to make notes of like medicine or what to feed, when to feed, just whatever. I started using that, and we still to this day, we write our weekly meal plan on the refrigerator, or on the freezer, I'm sorry, on the freezer with the dry erase marker. And if the kids are taking medicine, even though my two are older and they can kind of remember their own stuff, I still write that kind of stuff down on the freezer, and I make notes for the family when I'm gone so that they can remember. But anyway, that was just something that may not be something that works for everybody, or you may have your own system of things like that. But dry erase marker on the freezer door works great for us. I think that was 10 things. I may have added 1 or 2 in there, but about 10 things that saved my sanity this time around with the baby. If you have any more tips, tricks, and basic things that mom brains might be forgetting that would help you with the new baby, how about leaving it in the comments? And I appreciate you watching. I will see you on the next video. Bye.